Okay, so this is Mr. Flaherty. We're back and we're continuing our discussion of the Red Scare of the 1920s. In our previous discussion, we talked about the causes of the Red Scare. In this particular video, we're going to look at the response of the U.S. government, the state governments, and the American people locally to the Red Scare. And what you're going to see is that there is a general feeling or mood of intolerance that has taken over the United States, not just towards communists, but generally anything that they deem to be un-American, which questions the values of the United States or comes into conflict with anything that the general population considers to be American in nature. So when we left, we were talking about the strikes and the bombings of Mitchell Palmer, and he said that as a result of the strikes and the unrest, the strikers were branded as Reds and as being unpatriotic. And the fear of the strikes were leading to a communist revolution had spread throughout the country. Hysteria had taken hold. You can see in this picture the people of this particular town holding up signs that are clearly anti-communist in nature. Red hunting becomes a national obsession. Colleges are deemed to be hotbeds of Bolshevism. Professors are labeled as radicals, and this is very similar to what happens in the 1960s during the Vietnam War, where you have this younger generation of Americans who are on college campuses who are being exposed to a lot of different ideas. And many of them are not the views of the American government in particular. And as a result, the young students and the professors who are teaching these ideas are branded as radicals. And that's what you see during the Red Scare of the 1920s. The hunt reached all the way down to public secondary schools, where many teachers were fired for current or being members of leftist organizations like the Socialist Party or the Communist Party. The American Legions, founded in St. Louis in 1919 to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, to maintain law and order, to foster and perpetuate 100% Americanism. So this is a nativist organization. By the fall of 1919, they have over 650,000 members. By the end of 1919, their membership is over 1 million. However, this organization today that we see as being this leading organization of American veterans, and we'll actually celebrate with them next week on Veterans Day, engages in activities that are anti-radical during this time to protect the American values. They distribute pamphlets. The patriotic and anti-communist fervor of the Legion leads them to engage in some vigilante justice in the 1920s against Reds that they suspect of being guilty of trying to spread communism. The Legion's prevalence in the country and reputation for anti-communism was so great that the phrase "leave the Reds to the Legion" becomes the "was up" of the late teens. One of the other things that we're going to see in response to this supposed Red Scare in the 1920s was that legislatures, both locally and at the state level, reflect the national sentiment against radicals. Numerous local and state legislatures passed different ordinances against radicals and radical activities. So 32 states made it illegal to display the red flag of communism. The New York State Legislature expelled 5 socialist assemblymen who had been elected by the people to hold those positions. They prevented them from taking their seats and expelled them, even though they had been elected by the people. Congress was unable to enact a peacetime anti-sedition bill about 70 such bills were introduced in Congress, which would have prevented people during a time of peace from criticizing the U.S. government, from doing anything that could be considered interfering with the U.S. government or what they deem to be American values. The government, too, was not immune to anti-communistic hysteria in the early 1920s. The Justice Department, under Attorney General Mitchell Palmer, started the General Intelligence, or Anti-Radical Division of the Bureau of Investigation in August of 1919. J. Edgar Hoover was chosen as its head. Its mission was to uncover Bolshevik conspiracy and to find or incarcerate or deport conspirators. In actuality, they raided 30 different cities in the United States. They were looking for anyone that they considered to be a radical or who had beliefs that were anti-American. So Palmer and his men staged simultaneous raids in 30 cities across the United States looking for radicals. Eventually, the Anti-Radical Division would compile a file of over 200,000 cards that they maintained detailing radical organizations, individuals, and case histories across the United States of people that they considered to be supposed radicals or leftists. These arrests were often made at the expense of the individual rights of the people who were arrested. They were often made without warrants and for spurious reasons or reasons that didn't necessarily involve breaking a law, but the interpretation of the investigators as being anti-American behavior. One of these instances occurred in Newark, New York. For example, a man was arrested for looking like a radical. Even the most innocent statement against capitalism, the government, the country could lead to an arrest or imprisonment. Moreover, the arrests were often denied counsel in contact with the outside world. They were beaten. They were held in inhumane conditions. If the national press was any indicator of the predominant mood of the country, and the efforts of the Justice Department were overwhelmingly supported by the masses because the raids, the deportations, and the arrests were all championed on the front page of almost every newspaper. All told, thousands of innocent people were jailed or deported, and many more were arrested and questioned without any real reason, having not broken any law. On January 2nd, 1920 alone, over 4,000 alleged radicals were arrested in 33 different cities. One of the more notorious events that occurred during this time was the incident involving the Soviet Ark, when the United States used the U.S. Army transport to Beaufort and placed 249 Russian Reds or radicals, because many of these people were anarchists and not necessarily communist. But to the United States in the 1920s, it was a one-size-fits-all mentality. If you were an anarchist or anything, you opposed the U.S. government in any way, you were radical, you were communist, you were the same. So they placed them on the ship, and they sent them without their knowledge, they sent them back to Russia, or to Russia, since many of them were not from Russia to begin with, but they sent them to Russia as a Christmas present from the United States to Lenin and Trotsky. Okay, so I'm going to quickly review the Sacco and Vanzetti case because it's very interesting, but this will be part of our in-class simulation tomorrow, so I'm not going to go into all the good stuff. So on April 15, 1920, police arrested 2 Italian immigrant anarchists who had fled the United States during World War I to avoid serving in the U.S. Army. They were arrested for murdering and robbing a paymaster and his guard in a South Braintree, Massachusetts shoe factory of almost $16,000. So police linked the gun that Sacco had on him to the double murder. It was the only piece of physical evidence that connected the men to the crime. The press coverage of the Sacco and Vanzetti case revealed that the immigrants, self-confessed anarchists and radicals, during a time when the nation was caught up in anti-radical and anti-immigrant hysteria, the Red Scare, and public opinion was against them. Public opinion became even more hostile following the Wall Street bombing in June of 1920. So they were indicted for the murders in September of 1920, and the trial took place from May 31st, 1921 to July 14th, 1921. It was presided over by a judge by the name of Judge Webster Thayer. He's quite an interesting figure. So the trial lasts about 7 weeks, and Sacco and Vanzetti are found guilty of first-degree murder on July 14th, 1921, and they are sentenced to be executed. So the conviction resulted in anger, and a lot of people were upset, especially radicals, socialists, and intellectuals, both in the United States and in Europe. Many people believed that the conviction was unwarranted, had been influenced by the reputation of the accused as radicals when there was a lot of anti-radical sentiment in the United States, and the conduct of Judge Webster Thayer was particularly criticized. In any event, Thayer refused to order a new trial. They then appealed to the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts, but they confirmed the original verdict, and the new trial was denied. And on April 9th, 1927, Sacco and Vanzetti received the death sentence again, and at midnight on August 23rd, 1927, they were executed by the electric chair in the Charlestown State Prison in Boston, Massachusetts. So a lot of people were upset with the fact that they were executed. They believed that they were executed more for who they were than actually for what they did at a time when you had this anti-radical hysteria that was pervasive throughout the United States. The guilt or innocence of Sacco and Vanzetti continues to be debated, and this is one of the things that we are going to debate in class tomorrow. The last piece of evidence that we're going to look at is 3 immigration laws that were passed in the 1920s in order to keep these radicals out of the United States. There was an immigration law that was passed in 1921, which limited immigration to 350,000 people a year, and set the quota at 3%, using the group's total or who came from that country in the base year 1910. In 1924, the National Origins Act set that quota at 2%, using the base year 1890. And in 1929, they set the overall quota at 150,000 per year, using the base year 1920. So you can see that this was designed specifically to reduce immigration from Southern and Eastern Europe, where the radicals were believed to be coming from, because at this time there were very few in 1920 coming to the United States because of World War I. So as we wrap up, the question that I pose to you is, which pose a greater threat to the individual liberties of the American people? The supposed threat of radicals in the United States, this communist threat, or the response of the United States to this supposed threat? This is a question that we will be writing on tomorrow in class.